In the spring of 1982, in the small town of Springfield, Missouri, a young man named Daniel Brooks dreamed of a better life. His family was poor. His father worked long hours at a local factory, and his mother cleaned houses to help pay the bills. Money was always tight, but Daniel believed that hard work could change his future. After graduating from high school, Daniel moved to Chicago with only $150 in his pocket and a small suitcase. He had no relatives there and no guaranteed job. During the day, he worked as a warehouse laborer. At night, he studied business books at the public library because he couldn't afford college. One cold winter evening, Daniel noticed that many small grocery stores struggled to get fresh produce delivered on time. He saw an opportunity where others saw a problem. He borrowed an old pickup truck from a friend and started delivering fruits and vegetables to local stores early every morning before going to his warehouse job. The business started slowly. Some weeks he earned almost nothing. His truck often broke down, and there were days when he wondered if he should give up. But Daniel believed that every failure taught him something valuable. Within 5 years, he had saved enough money to buy 2 delivery trucks and hire his first employee. His company became known for fast, reliable service. More grocery stores, restaurants, and markets began working with him. By the early 1990s, Daniel expanded his business across several states. He invested wisely, treated his employees with respect, and always focused on customer satisfaction. His company continued to grow year after year. In 2001, a large national food distribution company offered to buy his business for $85 million. After careful consideration, Daniel accepted the offer. The young man who had once arrived in Chicago with only $150 had become a millionaire. Instead of retiring, Daniel used part of his wealth to create scholarships for students from low-income families. He also donated money to food banks and community programs because he never forgot where he came from. Whenever people asked him the secret of his success, Daniel smiled and said, "Success doesn't begin with money. It begins with courage, discipline, and the willingness to keep going when everyone else gives up." And that is how an ordinary young man from a poor American family built a fortune through hard work, determination, and kindness, proving that dreams can come true for those who never stop believing. After selling his company for $85 million, Daniel Brooks became one of the most respected businessmen in America. Newspapers wrote about his incredible journey, and television channels invited him to share his story. To the outside world, Daniel looked like a man who had everything: wealth, fame, and success. But deep inside, he knew that real success was not measured by money alone. A few months after the sale, Daniel returned to his hometown of Springfield, Missouri. As he walked through the quiet streets where he had grown up, memories came flooding back. He remembered the tiny house where his family struggled to pay the bills, the nights when there wasn't enough food on the table, and the dreams he once whispered to himself before going to sleep. Standing in front of his old home, Daniel made a promise. "I'll help families who are living the life I once lived." Soon after, he established the Brooks Foundation, a charity dedicated to helping children from low-income families. The foundation provided scholarships, school supplies, free meals, and mentorship programs. Within a few years, thousands of students had received opportunities they never thought possible. One afternoon, during a visit to a local high school, Daniel met a teenager named Ethan Parker. Ethan reminded Daniel of himself: hardworking, intelligent, but struggling because of poverty. Ethan dreamed of becoming an engineer, yet his family couldn't afford college tuition. Daniel listened carefully to the young boy's story. Instead of simply giving him money, Daniel offered him something more valuable: guidance. Every Saturday, Ethan visited Daniel's office. Daniel taught him about discipline, leadership, business, and the importance of making honest decisions. He explained that wealth could disappear overnight, but knowledge and character would stay forever. Years passed. Ethan graduated at the top of his class. earned a university degree, and later became a successful engineer. During his graduation speech, he looked into the audience and said, "One person believed in me when nobody else did. That belief changed my life forever." Daniel smiled quietly from the back row. As his charitable work expanded across the country, Daniel received another business opportunity. Investors wanted him to build a new logistics company using modern technology. Although he no longer needed more money, Daniel accepted the challenge because he wanted to create jobs. This time his goal wasn't becoming richer, it was creating opportunities for others. Within 6 years, the new company employed more than 12,000 people across the United States. Many of its employees came from disadvantaged backgrounds. Daniel insisted that every worker be treated with dignity and given opportunities for training and career growth. One evening, while watching the sunset from his office window, Daniel thought about the young man who had arrived in Chicago decades earlier, with only $150 in his pocket. He realized that the greatest reward wasn't the millions in his bank account. It was seeing thousands of people build better lives because someone had once believed in them. By 2015, Daniel Brooks was no longer known only as a successful businessman. Across the United States, people admired him as a leader who believed that success should be shared. His logistics company had grown into one of the largest in the country, employing more than 20,000 people. Yet, Daniel still lived a simple life. He drove an ordinary car to work several days a week and often visited company warehouses to talk directly with employees. One morning, Daniel received heartbreaking news. The old factory where his father had worked for nearly 30 years was shutting down. Hundreds of workers would lose their jobs. Daniel couldn't ignore their situation. Within weeks, he announced a new project. He purchased the abandoned factory and transformed it into a modern manufacturing and training center. Former factory workers were offered free job training, and many were hired into new positions. For many families, it was a second chance. The community celebrated Daniel's generosity, but he simply said, "Someone once gave me an opportunity. Today, it's my turn to give others theirs." A few years later, Daniel was invited to speak at a national business conference. Thousands of young entrepreneurs filled the auditorium, eager to hear his story. Holding up the same old worn wallet he had carried when he first arrived in Chicago with just $150, Daniel said, "This wallet reminds me that your starting point does not decide your ending. Your determination does." The audience rose to their feet in applause. As the years passed, Daniel slowly stepped away from daily business operations. He handed leadership of his companies to a trusted team, while he focused on education, healthcare, and community projects. Through the Brooks Foundation, thousands of students received scholarships. New schools were built in underserved communities, and families in need received support during difficult times. When Daniel turned 70, journalists asked him one final question. "What is the greatest achievement of your life?" He smiled and replied, "It isn't the millions I earned. It's the thousands of lives that became better because I chose to help instead of keeping everything for myself." Years later, when Daniel Brooks passed away peacefully, people from across America came to honor him. Business leaders remembered his vision, employees remembered his kindness, students remembered the opportunities he had given them. His name lived on, not because he was rich, but because he had used his success to make a difference. And his story became proof that true wealth is not measured by the money you keep, but by the lives you change. Years later, Daniel Brooks retired and spent most of his time helping young entrepreneurs and supporting charities through the Brooks Foundation. His companies continued to thrive under new leadership, creating jobs and opportunities for thousands of people. One peaceful evening, Daniel visited the small farmhouse where he had grown up. Looking at the sunset, he quietly smiled, remembering the day he had left home with only $150 and a dream. He realized that his greatest achievement wasn't becoming a millionaire, it was giving hope to others. When Daniel passed away at the age of 78, people across America honored his life. Schools, scholarships, and community centers continued his mission of helping those in need. His story inspired generations, proving that hard work, honesty, and kindness can build a legacy that lasts forever.